Hello and welcome to Nigeria, the Road to 2019, a series of programs where Arise News places the audience and the choice at the heart of our coverage of the upcoming presidential elections. I'm Charles Anyanwu. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, all the news, comment and analysis that provide unrivaled insight into Nigeria 2019, including with so many hopefuls in the opposition People's Democratic Party battling to be the presidential flag bearer in 2019, could the nominee eventually turn out to be someone little known? A charismatic and idealistic Obama-type hero out of nowhere who can strike a resounding populist chord, or more likely an aspirant who is old, familiar and recycled. We'll hear assessment from one of Nigeria's most respected senior PDP politicians. Now, whatever the members of the opposition People's Democratic Party, the PDP, and their coalition partners say, President Buhari remains popular with at least half or thereabouts of Nigerians, and there is a sobering awareness that his time in office could well stretch to the full 2 terms. So all kinds of meetings and behind-the-scenes shrewd bargaining are taking place to try to avoid what may inevitably be an intense, bitter and crowded PDP presidential primary election in October. The party's members know that they must choose a candidate that can fight an incumbent president who, if nothing else, at least has a reputation for integrity and incorruptibility, which some Nigerians would argue are things grossly missing from the ranks of the recycled PDP hopefuls. So who will emerge as the PDP presidential candidate, and what do they propose to run on? And why don't there appear to be any women in the running? Well, for more on this, let's have a chat now with one of the most senior female politicians in the PDP, the respected Senator Chris Anyanwu, who is not just a senator, but is also, of course, an author, a journalist, and a politician. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, Charles.
Where will the PDP find consolation from with such a wide field of candidates? Because it seems inevitable that the battle for the presidential ticket will degenerate into some kind of internecine squabble that can only divide the PDP and its coalition partners further.
Charles, I'm afraid you will be disappointed in the end. Don't expect that internecine squabble. I believe that everything will be sorted out smoothly. We are very excited by the emergence of so many highly qualified Nigerians seeking to run for presidential, for president under the platform of PDP. It's very exciting. In fact, we've never had it so good. And I think that out of all these men, we must be able to pick one. And when that person is picked, everybody is going to stand behind him and push. That is what I expect to happen. I even disagree with some of the statements you made in your opening, you know, some of the facts that you gave out. I'm not so sure that any aspirant, including Mr. President, at this point has half the Nigerian population supporting him. That is conjecture. You know,
there are polls that point in that direction.
That is a matter of conjecture.
We use polls to make our projections.
Well, polls are made by human beings,
and it
depends on the questions you ask. Garbage in, garbage out. If you ask them questions that elicit, you know, that kind of answer, you know, it depends on what you ask them actually, you know. And we are not part of that poll. But what I know is that whoever is going to emerge is going to have to work very hard.
Well, we would expect
all that we are asking is that we have a proper, transparent election this time. And I think that if it were done properly, transparently, that one of those many PDP aspirants might likely win.
Well, how can you say that when you don't even have a presidential candidate at this point? I mean, perhaps your focus should be on getting a candidate and then after that making that decision. And
of course we have at least 5 or 6 men, each of whom can make excellent
Yeah, but
an
you've got
excellent
14 presidential hopefuls in
But
your
yes,
party.
but I'm
So
saying
what
that
happens
out
to the
of
rest
that
of them?
crowd, that you must have 5 of them, each of which can, any day, provide Nigeria the leadership. Because there are men that are tried and tested, they have gone through the grill, they have virtually traversed, both the executive and the legislature, and that's what you need. That is the kind of preparation you need. You don't need to pick up someone from nowhere and entrust him with such onerous job. It's a killer job. So you need men and women who have gone through the grill, who have prepared themselves well.
I think a lot of
and I think that PDP, has a better choice when it comes to that.
Well, I think Nigerians would dispute that for the simple reason that the PDP has had 16 years of governance and ended up in tremendous disappointment for the people of Nigeria. And a lot of the people who are coming out as presidential hopefuls are people who were part of the machinery of the PDP over those 16 years.
No, let's not go through these were some of the old cliches, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but you haven't changed. You haven't changed the candidate,
now,
the people.
Look where we are
now. It's the same people.
Is your life, and you don't live in the country? I would ask
I
in Nigeria.
Well, I
is
spend
your
a lot
life
of time
better
here.
today? Is your life better today? And the answer is no. People are suffering hugely. People cannot endure the kind of suffering that they are going through anymore. Whoever is going to go in there as president must do something to make life better, to ease the pressure on Nigerians.
Well, of course, it depends on which side of the fence you're in, because in 2015, the big argument was that corruption was killing Nigeria and that insecurity was killing Nigeria. And that's one of the reasons why your party was removed from power.
So look where we are now.
Yeah, but let me just say this.
Is corruption eased?
Well, the obvious line of attack from President Buhari on the PDP, which they've voiced a number of times already, will be corruption. Is that likely to cause considerable befuddlement or perhaps inform who is likely to emerge as a candidate in your party? I mean, do you take those things
Charles,
into account?
that will not be a strong line of attack, because I don't know if you're listening, and there are those schools of thought that suggest that corruption is even higher at this time.
Well,
now look at, for instance, group of people, spend what, 45 million and buy a phone for Mr. President. Mr. President is Mr. Anti-Corruption. That is the persona.
Yeah, but what makes you think they got the money corruptly? I don't understand.
No.
I mean, that is purely speculative.
That act itself is very, wrong. It's corrupting in itself.
I don't understand.
Because in fact, it goes contrary to the Electoral Act. It's overspending. It's electoral spending. And 45 million donated to someone to buy a form goes into the record as over donation.
Well, there is no evidence.
There's
no evidence that the president has accepted the form.
In fact, if I were him, he tends his record as the anti-corruption president, and I would not accept that. It's not good for him to accept that. He should tell the people.
Well, he hasn't accepted or rejected it yet.
If I were him, give him, the record, his record, and his what he presents himself as, to the world, I would reject that outright. I would not even think about it twice.
Is there any attempt at all to get those aspirants in the PDP to outline their vision for the future of Nigeria? Is it just enough for them to badly want to run against President Buhari and win?
Charles, you ought to know better. PDP.
Well, I'm asking you.
Yeah, PDP
you're a member of the PDP.
It's not a chicken party, for God's sake. Of course, they are going to outline their vision.
Well,
even those of us who are at the lower, level of the party, even people running for assembly, for federal house, for Senate, they are all outlining their vision.
I don't mean just that. We've had a lot of the presidential hopefuls where you're sitting right now, and we have put them on the rack. Pillory, in fact, to try and find out what their vision is. And it's always the same generic statements. I will fight corruption. I will improve the economy. But no clear, discernible methodology about how that is going to be achieved. And that's the problem, because the politicians in this country have traditionally been used to not really being put through the pillory to put their visions across. They simply just say things, half of which promises they never keep.
Well, you know, I mean, I want to take it back, you know, some of what was said, what was promised, you know, by the APC before they
yeah, but we're not talking
Cano.
about the APC. We're talking about the PDP.
I'm coming.
Right.
I'm coming. You know, this whole thing about corruption and fighting, you know, Boko Haram and the rest of it, it became a cliche. But you see, they have not delivered on that, because it is not something that they sat down and worked out the means to that end. This is the way we're going to fight it.
I don't understand. No. What do you mean they haven't delivered on Boko Haram? I mean, it's
is
not
security better now?
Well, the
Today, a bus full of people was snapped by them, and 20 people.
Yeah, no. I understand that there are, and I promise you, we're not in any way taking the position of the government. It's our job to take the other side when we're talking with them.
Getting back to the PDP.
Right. Well, just to make that point about security, I mean, I've been to the Northeast a number of times.
Yes.
And I'm talking about recently. I don't know the last time when you were there, but I mean, I compared that to when I was there in 2014. And it's a completely different kettle of fish. Of course, there are pockets of insecurity, but driving through from Borno State to Yobe and all of that, from one state to the other, I mean, no problems that we encountered at all, and no sense at all from the people that we talked to, that their lives are more insecure now than it was at the time.
In 2015, it was different?
Of course it was different. We were there. I mean, when we went to Chibok, we had almost a contingent of more than 60 soldiers. I'm talking about an Arise News camera crew guarding us as we went. We had to go in a military helicopter with helicopter gunship. And what I'm saying is that when we went to Yobe, to Borno State and Yobe State earlier this year, we didn't have a single security man with us. We were simply myself, another correspondent, and the cameraman with a driver, and that was it.
That's good. I haven't been there myself, but all I know is the things that I'm reading. You know, I do know that some people were killed right here, you know, coming from Kaduna to Abuja, and that's part of that.
No, I'm not defending the government.
That's what we know.
I'm simply talking about the specific question of Boko Haram.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about other incidents of insecurity across the country, for example, in Benue and so on. But the point I'm simply making is that Nigerians are not really interested in, you know, long sort of discussions and dialogue. What they want is action. They're tired of both what the PDP did, and they're possibly tired of what the APC is doing. And they're looking for someone or some party who can give them a new vision that is achievable. And that's why I asked you, is there any attempt at all by these people, beyond the political pedigree that they seem to have, to outline a particular vision for the future of this country in the context of what is happening in Nigeria
Charles,
today?
I am absolutely certain that that is being done. You know, the first thing is you declare. And quite often, declare is to make general statements about the things you're going to do. And then you and your team go work it out. I'm sure that these men are working out the details of what they're going to do. Atiku, for instance, has been releasing some of these, his own point, because he started way ahead of others.
Yes, Atiku is probably the only one who's come up with a vision of restructuring.
I am absolutely sure that these men are working out their vision, will be publishing their brochure with their vision and the rest of it. People cannot just stand up and say they want to be president in this day and age without having something to, you know, some deliverables.
Right.
You know, your point out.
Well, we're just concerned that up till this point, with your primaries literally a few weeks away, we haven't heard any distinctive sort of, you know, manifestos. We haven't seen any from a lot of these people.
Yes.
And yet we would have thought that they would want to convince members of your party, and that the members of your party would want to hold them, you know, to account and say, well, why should we choose you as opposed to someone else?
There are, you know, they are touring the country and they are talking to party members. And at each stop, you're going to be telling them a lot of these things. But I think that the details come out after primaries, when people are now sure that they are going to be in the election. That's when you begin to see those brochures. That's when you're going to see all the materials that actually, bring out the details.
Well, do stay with us. We're going to take a short break. You're watching Nigeria, the road to 2019. Plenty more still ahead, including our chat with Senator Chris Anyanwu continues. Stay with us.